Well, hello. My name is Robert Bell. I am Executive Director of the Space and Satellite Professionals International, and I want to welcome you to Making Leaders. It's a series of conversations with people who are leaders in this fast-changing industry, and we're helping to forge a new generation of leaders to take us into the future. Our Making Leaders series of interviews and reports is made possible by a grant from Korn Ferry, which provides executive search, leadership development, and data on engagement and compensation to companies around the world, including many in our industry. We're also grateful for the continuing financial support for our mission from SSPI sponsors Arianespace, Boeing, Planet, and SSL. We are today very glad to welcome the co-founder, chairman, and CEO of Viasat, Mark Dankberg, who is in a little window on your screen already. Mark founded Viasat in 1986 with Steve Hart and Mark Miller, and the company pioneered in technologies that allowed nodes in a satellite network to share a common pool of capacity and also adapt on the fly to the changing traffic in each node. On the strength of that and other developments, the company went public in 1996 and began achieving a very long series of firsts in technology that put it on the Forbes 200 Best Small Companies list for 7 consecutive years. However, it is a small company no more, unless you count $1.5 billion in sales as small. Part of Viasat's success comes from a bet the company decision made in 2008 to design, to build, and launch the Viasat 1 Ka-band high-throughput satellite. Now, quite frankly, Wall Street hated it. Industry skeptics abounded. But Viasat 1 was launched in 2011 and put 150 gigabits per second of capacity into space, which was more than all the communication satellites then flying over North America. Members of SSPI, as a matter of fact, in a survey, named it as the industry's most significant milestone of the past 25 years. Well, the company went on to announce the next generation, Viasat 2, in 2013, which offered double the bandwidth. It went into service in March of this year despite an antenna glitch that costed a small amount of its capacity and taught us all once again that space is hard. Viasat 3 began development in 2015 as a constellation of 3 satellites in geo orbit that are going to be capable of delivering 100 megabits per second to just about any place in the world. So it's very rare for a startup to succeed in the way that Viasat has, largely through organic growth, not just through acquisition. It's even rarer, quite frankly, to successfully move from making boxes for government and commercial customers to flying satellites, and especially satellites that deliver a consumer service. So it's fair to say that Viasat has been one of the most creative and disruptive forces in the industry. I well remember the skepticism around the Viasat 1 announcement in 2008, and by that time I had the privilege of knowing Mark just a little bit. And I remember saying to somebody at that time, now look, maybe you're right, maybe Viasat can't make internet over satellite work, but personally, when Mark Dankberg says he's going to do something, I'm not going to bet against him. So Mark, welcome to our program.
Thanks. Yeah, thanks for having me.
Well, we're very pleased to have you. Now, I told our listeners that story to set the stage because for our Making Leaders series, I actually want to talk to you about you. I want to talk to you about your career, the leadership lessons that it taught you, and how you put those lessons to work. Because quite frankly, it's the kind of leadership that you and your partners provide that has made so many unlikely things possible. So let's talk a little bit about about the road that got you here. So what were your early years like?
I had a nice childhood, sort of middle class childhood. My father was into computers early on and math, and so I got interested in that. I was really curious. The things I remember, I asked lots of questions, whether in school or at home. Always curious stuff, and something I got, I think, from my father is I like to argue. That was sort of the way I learned stuff. I ask questions and express viewpoints and sort of see, you like rub ideas against each other and see what happens. And got really comfortable with that. I think that curiosity and the sort of willingness to just sort of argue and discuss things have been really big factors in the way I developed professionally and in my leadership style.
Yeah, that's interesting. That's the question I was going to ask you about how you think that influenced you. I'm going to guess that you run a pretty collegiate shop there.
Yeah, yeah, that is kind of my style. I love learning new things, and I like working with really smart people who are also curious and who will challenge the things that I do, and who want to take things and run with them. I think people, I mean, I'm very visible, but the stuff that we do is because of all the people that we have who are really, really smart and take ownership of them and just make those things happen. I feel like I'm sort of a catalyst for it. But I think that's one of the most significant leadership lessons I've learned over time.
I once talked to a CEO who said, everybody else here has a job. I don't have a job. My job is to make sure that they can do their jobs, which I thought was a great description.
Yeah, I mean, the way I describe it is I don't actually do anything meaningful. I mean, other people do all the work. I think the big issue, the thing that a leader needs to do is, if there's one thing I'd say about leadership, it's what you want to do is you want to engage people who are very committed, who own what they're trying to do, where what they're trying to do is meaningful and impactful. But the issue of a leader is you don't want people to like pour their heart into something and try to make something happen that's not worthwhile, right? That's not going to be economically valuable or not going to enable success. And so that's, to me, the great responsibility of a leader. It's to be sure that we're aimed in the right direction, but you can't really take credit for what actually gets done. All you can do is engage people and aim them in the right. Well, I don't even think it's aiming. It's really figuring out jointly where we're trying to go, and then make sure that's worthwhile, and then let them do it.
Hmm. Now, so when you went to college way back when, did you have any idea what you wanted to do for a career?
Not really, sort of. I mean, I grew up in the 60s, and I remember watching all the space programs, and that was a big thing for me. And so I was really impressed with aerospace, and well, like many millions of other kids would have liked to have been an astronaut. So that always sort of meant engineering in one way or another. I was aware of places like Caltech and MIT, and sort of set my sights on an engineering career, but probably didn't really know what that meant.
When I interviewed Gwen Shotwell, she said she first got interested in engineering because she saw a speech by a woman engineer, a rare breed in those days, and she just loved the woman's dress, and that's how it started for her. You never know. What was your first role in managing people?
um, Probably first time I remember my first job. I worked at Rockwell, and I just got put on an R&D project, and this was back in the late 70s, and it was digital voice. And the people were, I mean, if you remember back in the late 70s, Texas Instruments came out with this thing called Speak and Spell, where you could actually have a toy that, that would spell out words for you. And it was digital signal processing, and people realized that digital speech was going to happen. There was great value of that in that for secure communications, which is what we did at Rockwell. So I got put on an R&D job to figure out, actually I was just supposed to support other people on figuring out what we would do, what would be the right algorithms or family of algorithms to pursue and implementation. And I was right out of school, but I ended up kind of doing a lot of research and figuring out, hey, this is the direction we should go. And the company kind of ended up going in that direction. I'd say that was like probably the first one that was really significant.
Interesting. Well, did you have people reporting to you in that, or were you managing sideways? How are you getting it done?
Yeah, I was sort of at the bottom of the people that were engaged, but I think that the work I did was really good, and it was really more by influence. I mean, and that's sort of my style is I really like digging into things and learning them, but I always try to present it in a way that, hey, here's what I think. Tell me what's wrong with this. Is this right or not? And then rubbing it against other things. And I was fortunate enough to have the people that worked with me and above me go, well, hey, that makes a lot of sense. Why don't we keep doing that? And I just got more and more responsibility, and then ended up having a budget to manage and people that were implementing what I did. And that's sort of, I guess that's sort of leadership. I felt like it was at the time.
Well, I think it still is. So now, looking back on that, sort of what was an early lesson? Well, first of all, the early lesson was these people like what I'm doing. I'm going to keep doing it. But once you did have that budget, once you did begin to have to become responsible for other people's performance as well, what was an early lesson that taught you either good or bad?
Well, so I ended up leaving Rockwell around that, and part of it was one of the things I realized was that while the let's say a large part of the people I was working with really thought this was the way to go, there was an implementation issue, and that kind of ran into corporate investments and other types of signal processing that that were inconsistent with the direction that my thing was going. And so we spent a little while trying to wrestle with that. And I think at the end, it turned out that the feedback was, well, what you're saying makes a lot of sense, but even though it doesn't make sense, we're committed to this. And so that actually sort of catalyzed me leaving and going somewhere else, going to actually Linkabit, which is the Qualcomm predecessor, because basically all the people I was working with, including the people I worked for, said, "Yeah, we can't really defend this argument." And one of the things I felt like was, wow, you don't want to lead in an environment where you can't be successful. Right? That doesn't make any sense. You can't. I mean, you have this responsibility for leadership, and you don't want to go in a direction that can't work. And that was the conclusion I came to in that case.
That's very interesting. That takes us back to the very first thing you said, that it's your responsibility to make sure people are spending their time doing something that's going to at least has a good shot at success.
Yeah.
If you're just joining us, this is Robert Bell of the Space and Satellite Professionals International, and our program is Making Leaders. I'm speaking with Mark Dankberg, the co-founder, chairman, and CEO of Viasat, about his career and the lessons that he has learned from it. So, Mark, let's talk about being a leader, in particular being somebody who has to do some hiring. If you had just 5 minutes to interview somebody, what are the questions you'd ask?
Yeah. So the main thing I like to ask people is, tell me about something that you've done that was hard or challenging. Tell me why, what you learned, what was hard about it. And the thing I always ask people, and it's amazing how it trips people up, is just be sure to choose something that you tell me about that you really understand. And part of what I'm trying to, sort of suss out about that are, do people really understand the things that they think they do, right? Are they relying on, well, somebody told me this, and so I started with that? Or do they really go to sort of basics and first principles when they talk about the foundation of what they're doing and the way that they built on that foundation? That's what I try to figure out, and it's sort of trying to figure out the depth to which people will go to understand what they're doing and why they did it.
Sure. Okay, so that's one. Now that's the 5 minutes, but of course, most hiring takes longer than that. So, in general, how do you hire? What are you looking for? And obviously, it depends upon the kind of position, but I'm sure you're looking for a set of qualities.
Yeah, I think I think the things that we look for, people, I think people tend to look for the things that makes themselves successful, right? So the things I look for are curiosity, a willingness to defend, to have a point of view, right? To say, hey, I learned these things, and here's what I deduced from them, and here's my point of view, and then to be able to defend that, and to be open to new ideas. And because again, for me, the thing I'm always concerned about is I can be really persuasive, but what I'm always worried about is I'm missing some facts. It's other people know things that I don't, and as a result of that, the premises that I've built my conclusions on are wrong. So I'm looking for people who sort of are like that themselves, right? That they're really curious, they're open to learning new things, they're open to rethinking all of their conclusions and point of view based on new things. I think if you can find that, you've got the foundations of a really powerful team.
It's interesting to me because I've heard you speak on a number of occasions. One of the things that always interests me about it is that, most people when they're speaking push a point of view, but I always feel when you're talking that what you're saying comes out of a lot of discussion and a lot of different points of view. And by the time you're saying it, you're pretty sure that this is the right answer, but there's always that extra room for doubt.
Yep, yep.
Yeah,
There, if you don't have any, that's setting yourself up for problems.
exactly. Okay, so what kind of advice do you, and I know that Viasat actually does a lot of this hiring right out of university, but what's the advice you would give to new college grads who think they want to do something in this space and satellite area? Maybe they're in engineering, maybe they're in another part of that world. How do they
Well,
get their foot in the door? That's always the question I get.
um, so one is, I think one thing is really to understand what you're good at and to try to think about that purposefully. I think a lot of people will say that the best formula for success is to find the intersection of things you really like and things you're really good at, right? I really like basketball, but I'm very good at it. I'm very good at that, so you got to find things that you really like and that you're good at as well, and part of that is being objective and being able to assess are you really good at that? What are the right standards? And it's not a whole lot of fun to do things that you're good at, but that ultimately aren't rewarding. So there's those two, and then I think the other thing that worked for me is to find people that are smarter than you, right, or more experienced than you, or have more, yeah, so have just had generally some combination of that curiosity, willingness to learn, and experience that you can learn from. And so, especially when I went to Linkabit and Erwin Jacobs and Andy Viterbi, I learned a ton by being around really, really smart people, and really, really smart people are going to find opportunities to grow. And then the idea is, well, can you take those opportunities and hang on? And we're trying to create that. We're trying to create that environment when we hire new college grads. And I think people out of school, who haven't worked somewhere else, they're sort of unpolluted in the sense that they don't know what can't be done. So you can give them really, really good challenges, and a lot of them will rise to it.
Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed. All right, so we've talked a little bit about sort of how you learned leadership. You learned it by doing and by working in an atmosphere of debate and understanding. What are some of the other key leadership lessons you've learned? Because now you're at the top of a multi-billion-dollar company. It's got to be a completely different game than it was way back then.
Yeah, in some ways, I think the principles are similar. Scaling's hard, and one of the other principles that it just sort of to me is an outgrowth of it, but it's really important if you want to scale is uh, we start at the beginning saying, well, the CEO doesn't really do anything. And in some cases, that's true. In many ways, that is true. You have to be able to delegate. And that's a hard leadership lesson where you go from a lot of people get promoted because they were, domain experts, right? They knew they get promoted based on what they know or what they can do, but really their success as a leader depends on what the team that's working for them can do. So you need to constantly be bringing on people who are better than you in virtually every discipline of the company. Better engineers, better finance people, better marketing people, in every way. And I think that's one of the keys to scaling. And in order for that to work, you have to love it, right? I mean, and I do. Because I love learning stuff and I love debating stuff. So that I think that ability to delegate and to be able to find people who are capable of working in that environment. So they also, in order to deal with me, they've got to be comfortable with this notion of defending their point of view and being open to new ways of doing things. And to do that both horizontally, with the people they work with, and they need to do it with the people who work for them, because we want to promote the same leadership style throughout the company. But that's an important skill in scaling that I think I've had to do, learn and develop, and I'm still working on.
Well, I'm going to guess that you also that the other important skill that you look for in people you want them to have is the same kind of passion that you have, because that obviously is what drives everything.
Yeah, they have to love. I mean, it's that they have to really love what we're doing, and I think the companies that are most successful really do have a purpose, right? Some mission that they're trying to accomplish, uh, change the world in some way. And I think that if you can bring that sense of purpose to people with curiosity and skills, that's a really powerful combination.
Yeah, I
So
agree.
that's a little bit of what I do, is try to synthesize all the things we're doing into something really impactful and purposeful that we can accomplish as a team. And I think that's been helpful.
I love the comment about purpose. I agree with you passionately. So let's boil it down. What do you think your employees can be proud of, about working for this particular company? What is that purpose that they have to execute every single day?
Yeah, well, it's evolved, I mean, over time, but right now, I think it's like the most exciting it's ever been for the company. And a lot of different people and companies are talking about connecting the world, and that's what we're doing. I don't think, I think there are certain technologies that are more mass market than what we're doing. Like, for instance, mobile cellular. I mean, there are billions of people that'll be on mobile cellular, but the thing that we're doing that's really cool is we're connecting the people who are the hardest to connect in ways that's very comparable to what they can get in the easiest environments. And so, I mean, one of the coolest things that's happened to me, and it's happened to a lot of people that worked on it, for instance, is when you do in-flight connectivity and you're sitting on an airplane and the person next to you goes, "Wow, this is really cool," and you can say, well, "Yeah, we make that. We do that." It's really cool. But now we get similar experiences when we connect people in rural America who get 100 megabit per second speeds in a place that they never thought that would be possible. We're doing it in rural Mexico, where people get connectivity in towns that have never had it before. So that connecting the world mission is a really powerful sense of purpose. And what's good is that it combines so many of the skills and disciplines that we had along the way, but now as a service provider and a satellite operator and a retailer, we can bring all those skills together in a way that's very, very impactful and people can understand immediately.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, so what out of all of this we've talked about, what's the best part of your job?
Uh, so the thing, I started the company, it's like 32 years ago. The thing that I find most rewarding is to watch how people grow. We have lots of people that we hired right out of school that have been here their whole careers, and to see those people grow into domain experts and nationally recognized experts, and to build things that are just amazing, and to see them grow in terms of their breadth and their confidence and their ability to communicate. That's really rewarding. I think most fun.
Wow, I that does sound like fun. Like any tech industry, the space and satellite business is driven by the ambition, the knowledge, the leadership skills of its people. And in our Making Leaders series, we take time away from business plans and from technology roadmaps to focus on on the people making the difference. So that certainly describes you. And I want to thank you very much, Mark, for joining us today.
Oh, thanks for having me. It's been fun.
Absolutely. My thanks also to Korn Ferry for making this program possible with the additional support of Arianespace, Boeing, Planet, and SSL. Thank you all for joining us and wish you a very good day.